Panola Pride, Mrs. LeGrone is our guest today, and we'll be visiting with her. But I first need to say that our program is made possible by Superior Homes in Longview, selling manufactured homes, brands Skyline, Spirit, and Schultz. They're located at 1225 West Marshall Street, that's Old Highway 80. And the Gregton area, go by and visit with Travis or Jerry Stanley. Manufactured housing, new homes, as well as remodeled homes and reconditioned homes. They have financing available. They've been in business for over 20 years, serving the people of East Texas in manufactured housing. We recommend them. We invite you, if a manufactured home is in your future, to go by and visit with them. Ms. LeGrone, so we've got a couple of announcements. It seems, have y'all been pretty busy down at the library?
Very busy. It's an interesting place down there. We're just liable to meet people from all over.
How are the history book sales
going? Going great, but we want to remind everybody, the dummy copy, our practice copy, has already come to me, and I've turned page by page to see that it is exactly like we had it before, and it's gone back to them, and so they are in the process now of printing page by page.
Our program today is going to be quite interesting. This is one of those programs where if you're interested in education, we invite you just to sit down and relax and enjoy our program. Pick up the telephone and call a neighbor, because they're going to enjoy it too. One thing that a thread that we share together, a common thread, is education.
Yes.
And you have some thoughts on it, and I look forward to those thoughts.
Over and over, I get stymied into something that affects schools, or that has affected schools. And I kind of go by something that happens, as I've told you before, that sort of kicks off an idea, and from that I start digging into the files. And of course, my files are in a bad shape. They're not properly filed, but I do have a lot of information collected. And this week last weekend, I was doing some research on Dr. Major Dowell Sterrett, the doctor that was so popular over in the Beckville area, Grand Bluff area. And I discovered that he left Grand Bluff. He was a very popular doctor out there, but he left Grand Bluff to go to the schools that would be, he thought, the best in the county for his children. He had married one of the Voller family ladies, and Julia was her name, and they had 4 little children to send to school, and they'd been married 12 years, living there at Grand Bluff. And they decided to move to Harris Chapel. Now, the reason they moved was the teacher at Harris Chapel. And this, of course, is what started a little bell ringing in my head. And these are the qualifications that made him, in their estimation, be the desired teacher for their children. One was, he was a scholar, well prepared for teaching. He was a man that was serious about teaching. But most of all, he did not spare the rod. He was a strong disciplinarian. And this is what really kicked off my thinking about, in other words, he was a scholar, and he could teach kids because parents were behind him in discipline. And I got to wondering, how does that compare to today's schools? In this day of threats of being sued for everything you do, and teachers are no different from other professions. Everything they do is liable. They have to carry heavy insurance to protect them. And in that day, they didn't want them unless they would be strong disciplinarians. So since I've gone through a number of years, and have seen the lax discipline that we really accept today, I wonder how teachers sometimes teach at all, because you can't teach a child until he listens to you and takes direction. And sometimes they just don't listen these days, and then if you come a little rough with them, why, you have something to answer to outside the school. So I thought this was a rich area, and I began to look at teachers of the past. And the ones that we'll mention this morning were all born in the 1800s. I have chosen a handful, 6 lady teachers that really made a mark in their teaching. But one thing they had was discipline. Now, I feel for young teachers now going into the classroom with great dreams of accomplishing so much and facing a class that is not attentive, and all those dreams falling or failing. And soon the young person becomes disillusioned and many times turns to some other profession, when to stick to it would be helpful to the person and to the students of the future. Well, I began to look back through what teachers have stood for through the years. We're about to get into another school term. In fact, all these preliminaries are going on right now all around us. So I thought this would be interesting. This popular doctor from Grand Bluff that went to Harris Chapel went there especially to see that his children were educated. And they had a couple of children born there. And later, for the same purpose, really, they moved on to Beckville. But Harris Chapel got its name, Harris, from this Mr. Harris, who was such a strong teacher. It was first called Mahon, and still has that name tacked to it. But it's a thriving community today, very prosperous, ambitious people in there. And Mr. Harris was a professor that was well known across this county because he was, in addition, as I said, in addition to being a scholar, he was also a disciplinarian, and he did not spare the rod. Well, I pulled out some things about the requirements of teachers in Carthage High School in 1913. And let me just read 2 or 3 things that teachers were required. This little booklet is a handbook for teachers and parents in that day. And this is the section for the teachers. Each teacher shall be held responsible for the order, discipline, and improvement of her class and the safety of the furniture in the room during the time that it may be occupied. Now, she had a double duty. And this is true of teachers. If, we have expensive equipment, teachers have responsibility to take care of that. In addition, to taking care of the teaching problem, they have a housekeeping problem always that has to be carried out. That's always been. All damage done to the building or furniture shall be promptly reported to the superintendent. In other words, the teacher has to be alert to it. Well, this is still true in a lot of ways, but we're not as strict about it, and so the facilities go down real fast, and it takes a lot of money to replace them, and that costs you and me.
Yes, it does.
And so all the modern equipment is expensive. Teachers shall make out monthly reports of progress. Now, this was a simple thing in that day. Now the paperwork that teachers have to do is just tremendous. They don't have time to make preparations for their teaching because they have to spend so much time reporting on what's already been done. Then teachers shall make out a program of recitation periods, and this, of course, they have to have their lessons planned and everything now, as they did then. But some of these other things then are a little different from what we have now. Teachers are not allowed to send the pupils on errands during school hours except on urgent school business. That's always been a rule, I guess, that I know of. You didn't send students out on errands. They were there to be in class. But we got into students being out of class a lot, and that's the reason we got into this updating schools and making it hard for you to get a child out of class for anything if he's going to make his way. I remember in my English classes, I used to say, give him to me just the time he's supposed to be, and I'll do better by him. But don't take him out of my class to go to some outside activity that won't help him get his foundation for this education. All the activities have to be planned into the schedule so they do not take the place of regular classwork. Well, this is one of the problems they have today, and it's always been a problem. And let's see, teachers shall, while connected with the public schools, devote their whole time and attention to the interests of the school. I'm not sure we stick to that today. We say today that teachers' private life is their own business, but it wasn't then. It was community business. She had to exhibit a Christian character at all times, and her time belonged to the community no matter what hour it was. Unmarried teachers, now this is what would hit us hard today. Unmarried teachers shall not receive nor entertain company in a social way during the days or evenings of the school week. No dates, no anything. Well, that was pretty strict. And if a teacher was seen dating, of course, she was called up on the carpet. Any teacher may be discharged from the service of a school and the contract with such teacher canceled at any time by direction of the board for such reasons as they may deem sufficient after 15 days' notice has been given to the teacher. In other words, if she's seen out on a date, that's too bad. She'll be reported. Teachers shall obey all the instructions of the superintendent, and these, of course, she had to abide by and had to be a very rigid.
The date on that was
1913.
1913.
Now I have here 1912 one that gives the teachers of the county, the listing of the teachers. Then I have a listing of all the teachers of the county during World War I in 1918. I pulled those out to make comparisons of then and now. These teachers that were teaching in those days were born before the turn of the century, you see. So I lit on a little group of them that I thought represented the interesting teachers of that day. There were some others, and this is all a little handful of women, but I am interested in doing another program on men teachers, because there were things that men were able to do that women couldn't touch, in those days. In fact, I have said that I came to Carthage High School not knowing some of the rigid discipline that was for the faculty here. It was still rigid in 1942 when we came in. A lot of ideas were. One of them was that went on for years. If a man and his wife taught in the same school system, this was a Carthage ruling, she took a cut every month because she was the wife of a teacher. And she put in just as much time and had just the same training, had to have the same training that he had to have. But this was a rigid ruling until it became a state law not to do it. And don't you think teachers got that law passed? Because that was not fair.
Certainly did, yes.
That was not fair. Okay, we start with Miss Lottie Woolworth. She was born in Bethany in 1876. She was the daughter of Judge Morgan Woolworth, who was a long-time Panola County clerk. And she graduated in the class of 1892. And that was the first graduating class from the old male and female college. Mm-hmm. Now then, that listed in the first annual Pine Burr. It listed the former graduates of Carthage High School, and they were listed as graduates in 1892 because that was the first graduating class they had, and is a pretty good sized group, and some of them had finished school earlier than that, but this was the graduating class, and she was in it. And she then, after finishing school here, she went to Keachai College. Now, most people do not realize there was a college at Keachai. The organization of that college later became the old Nacogdoches University. It was moved to Nacogdoches, but before the Civil War and on into the turn of the century, there was a college at Keachai. It was the old high school at Keachai. Of course, they don't even have a school there now, but the old high school building was the college building. And during the Civil War, the wounded soldiers from Mansfield Battle were carried to that college. That was made into a hospital, a field hospital. And the early educators went to school there. And I think it was probably equivalent to what we now call the junior college. And after finishing there, she went to Sam Houston Normal. Now, Sam Houston Normal was not a university then, it is now. But her education was finished there. And she taught school all over this county: Carthage, Mediate, Tatum, Beckville, Cary. Now, all of this was around the turn of the century. And she taught here from the time she graduated until the family moved to San Angelo. And she went along with the family and was employed as a principal of a school there. She'd already had years of experience here. And she was employed as a principal there in 1910. And she continued in that same school until her retirement. And then she died in 1954. But she had not lived here in a long time. But Lyde Woolworth was a pioneer teacher. She was a disciplinarian, and of course went into administration as a disciplinarian because the principal had discipline to perform in those days. Then came Miss Bertha Kirkley, and I remember, well, there were two Kirkley sisters, but Miss Bertha's the one that went to university teaching. She was a Panola County native, grew up in the area of Tatum. She was born just after the Civil War, 1868. And she and her sister started teaching in Panola County. And she was an excellent teacher and disciplinarian. As I said, that had to go along with it. And she had done such excellent work at the normal school at Sam Houston at Huntsville that she was later employed there as a professor of history. And years ago, when I was a college student, people talked about Miss Bertha Kirkley. I never had her, though I had a little college training at Sam Houston. I didn't have her in my class, but they said she had such odd quirks in her habits that they all made fun remarks about her, but everybody appreciated her excellence as a scholar. She was a great scholar, and when her life was out, she taught there. After she had taught in Panola County the beginning years, she went back and took a job as a college professor in 1891, same year that our jail was built. And she taught there for 50 years in the normal school, and till 1941, retiring then. And she died then 9 years later, in 1950. And they have plaques all over the place there in her honor for various scholarships that had developed from her. Her scholarly work as a teacher. And she's a Panola County native and has people here that are descendants from the same family of Kirkley. And then I went to Ada White Jordan. Now this is Dial Jordan's mother. And she was born out here at Sand Hills, where they're mining coal now. And her parents were Chris White, who was a brother to my grandmother. She was a white also. And her mother was Ellen Kynard. Now, Miss Kynard taught for years, one of the Kynards in Beckville. But Ada was born in 1879, and she grew up out there at Sugar Hill in that Sand Hill area. And she started teaching at 17. Now, they got certificates then by taking state examination. And she did that and started teaching. She taught her first school in the Broome community. That was the neighboring community to Sugar Hill. And it was a one-teacher school, and a 17-year-old girl teaching it. She had to be a disciplinarian, there's no doubt about it. She probably had students as old as she. This was true in the one-teacher schools, that they taught all the grades. Whatever students needed, that's what they taught. And so she had her hands full. She married Robert Jordan and reared 4 children. Now her 2 daughters were career teachers also, taught in this county and then left this county. Of course, Dal is the only one of the 4 children that lives here now, I guess. And of course his children are all grown and gone. But she was the first and only woman to be elected county school superintendent. And this was a mark for women. She held that office for 2 terms, I guess. 2 4-year terms, I don't know. I didn't look up the dates, but I know it was 2 terms. And she was so efficient that she was then appointed as an aide to the state school superintendent, L.A. Woods. And she went to Austin. And in Austin, that gave her a chance to send her children to school, too, you see, to colleges. Mm-hmm. And she worked in the state education office for about 12 years. And this was 1934 that she took that office. No, not, it was 8.5 years at Austin. And then she retired at Carthage again, back to her home. And she died here at 90 and was still a dynamic person. I loved to visit with her because her attitude was so great, that she loved people, and she loved young people especially, because that had been her life. After she left teaching the school, then she became superintendent and still had her hand in the school business. All right, then one that you will remember, and everybody will remember, but she's a pretty early teacher, Jenny Mae Chadwick. And she's a personality that every student that came through Carthage School during the 20-something, 28 years, I think, that she's in Carthage School, they didn't forget her. She's just a different person. But she received her first teaching certificate from education, from an examination. She graduated from Carthage High School in 1904. And that same year, she took examination and got a certificate to start teaching in primary. And she's taught at Liberty Chapel first, out here on the Shreveport Highway, Frog Pond, they call it. And then she began teaching after several years in the community schools. She kept going back to school and got degrees. Most of us did back in those years. We started teaching without degrees, with certificates for 4 or 6 years or something, and in the meantime we built on to the next level and so on. I know Grady and I both got our degrees that way. We did it Summers, and she did the same thing, and she had experience of attending. After she got her master's degree, she kept attending summer school at various places and having new ideas. And she was a charmer conversationally, and was very popular in the social circle of Carthage. Not a flippant kind of thing, but as a Christian woman in the church and in the community, and everybody knew her. And she died in 1970 at age 83. Now you see, these were dynamic people that stuck to it and kept digging away. And then a person that you will also remember, Miss Valley Holland Baker. She's another one that was born in this county in 1894, and out at Centennial, that's out the other side of the river, and in the Midiat area. And her family moved into Carthage when she was 6 years old, and the rest of her life was spent in the Carthage area. She began teaching after her graduation in the early 1900s. She began teaching as a piano teacher, private piano teacher, until she got her credentials for primary work, and she taught in primary at first. And then she married a young dynamic doctor, A.M. Baker, and he was went right into World War I as a doctor, and she followed him from camp to camp, and she would teach or work or something in the community activities for the war effort. And when they returned to Carthage, she became his helper in his medical practice, and reared 2 children. The son was an adolescent when he was accidentally killed with a gunshot, and one of those, not knowing the gun was loaded, I understand. And then, her daughter became a nurse, an RN, and went to World War II as a nurse, I think. But Valley went back to the classrooms after her husband's practice was over. He died, and she went back to the classroom, and she became the first county school supervisor. And this made her become a patron of the rural kids. And she became kind of a mother to them. And that old house down there of hers, it's gone now, where the car wash is. No, the car wash, yeah, it's still there, isn't it? The office is burned, but the car wash is still there. Okay, she opened her house, and these country kids that needed to come into Carthage for high school, they could stay at her house for just nothing. And she was responsible for a lot of them graduating from high school. And so people loved her. And then she, in her late years, she came into the Carthage system and was really the supervisor of academics in the high school, giving all the tests and all that sort of thing, and she was very popular there. And she retired in 1957 and died in 1978. Then I thought it was only fair that we mention a black teacher who had had a career in this county that most people don't know about. And her daughter was here a few years ago working up the story of her mother. And I thought it was just amazing. This is Louisa Holland Money. She married a Money. And she was born just as the Civil War ended, 1865. That put her the earliest one we're talking about. And she received her early training just from the white teachers because mainly being around the white homes where her slave parents worked. And she began teaching black beginners when she was 12 years old. And then this daughter said that she got her first teaching credentials at age 15 by taking a test. Of course, they needed black teachers badly, and she started teaching in the schools, the black schools of this county. And the list that she had given that daughter showed that she had taught in 29 different black schools in this county. And she was a religious leader as well as a teacher. And this girl lives in California, but she had gotten some kind of an honorary remembrance in California, worked up because of the work that her mother had done. And she died the last 2 years she taught, and I don't know if that's on there or not, was at Longstreet, Louisiana. And then when she died, she was brought back. Her first school was out here close to the Black Oddfellows Cemetery, and she was brought back and buried there, right close to it. So she had listed all of these 29 schools and talking to her children where she had taught through the years. And she's made a mark in my book.
You bet.
Of a long-time teacher. And this daughter had talked to Mr. Worth Yarborough, that was a county superintendent
I
here.
believe that's correct, yes.
All right. It was during his term that this daughter started working on this. And he worked up the background of it enough that she had authentic backing for her having taught. So this is the kind of teachers that were. And these are the kinds of things that people expected of them. They expected them to be able to teach without anything to teach with except a determination. And they had to build the fires in the schoolroom, carry in the wood, sweep the floors, and so on. Anything they couldn't get children to do, they had to do themselves because they did not have any equipment to go by. But they had a love of learning and a determination to teach, and they had the rod to keep order. Now then, are we, as modern parents, as devoted to the teachers of our children to give them a chance? They don't have a chance to teach unless the children respect them. And it's hard for teachers to get respect today.
Words well spoken. We thank you. Our time is completely gone. I would like to continue this at another program. Maybe next week we can do a follow-up.
Maybe so, and take some of the men, because we have had men that have gone into advanced university work right out of this county.
We thank you for bringing the program, and would like to remind our listening and viewing audience that the High Sheriff will be here tomorrow, and I think Sue Smith's program is lined up next, so Don, we'll give it right back to you.
KGAS.